Okay, getting into some leadership and really life choices. And you can apply these to life, you can apply these to business. Here are some choices that humans have to make. Protect the status quo or take risks necessary to win decisively. That speaks on its own. Protecting the status quo can be easier than changing it. To take action, one risks making a mistake. So that's a choice. And it's not a black and white choice. There's a lot of shades of gray in there. And how can you modulate that choice? But it is a choice that you have to be aware of. Focus inwards to prevent mistakes or on the enemy to keep pace with a changing situation. This is an interesting. Professionals of all types try to minimize errors. Unfortunately, trying too hard to do so in the military profession has some serious trade-offs. Initiative, ability to surprise one adversary, perspective on the overall picture, and learning, just to name a few. And I would say that those are the exact same in any profession. That when you are only focused on not making mistakes, how are you going to make any risks? Jiu-jitsu. I mean, the minute that you're just like, hey, I'm going to go with what I know, and I am so guilty of this. I am the guiltiest of all in that I'm very set in my ways in the moves that I do. You know, I do 4 submissions, maybe even 2, you know. But, you know, they're like what I'm good at, so I do them a lot. And I go through phases, and I shouldn't even say it's phases. I go through days where I take a lot of risks and I learn more. And then I go through days where I'm just there because I have to train and I'm going to do what I do. And I'm going to do what I do well. But that's not when I learn. That's not when I get better. Mm-hmm. I get better when I'm trying something new. Mm-hmm. And that applies to everything in life. Key to an infantryman's ability to react to whatever confronts him is his authority to exercise some initiative. You got to give your people the freedom to maneuver. You have to. In combat, the leader must personally supervise only those actions that jeopardize the overall mission and then allow subordinates to exercise initiative and make a few mistakes on everything else. Those subordinates must be able to identify mistakes as they happen without fear of punishment, or the same mistakes will happen again. This is making mistakes without fear of punishment. You know, Dean, our, buddy Dean Lister, he does these drills that he calls consequence-free drills, where he just says, okay, you're going to start, that someone's going to be on your back and you're going to try to escape, but doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what happens. If they submit you, doesn't matter. Just doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Consequence-free drills. It's just to take chances because all of us, we all hate getting tapped out. Mm-hmm. We all hate giving up position. Right. So you do these consequence-free drills. You go, okay, I look at the guy and I'm like, okay, you're going to tap me out. It's no big deal. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to try crazy stuff. And that's what they're saying here. You got to give people the chances to make mistakes.
Yeah, and that's actually an important one because how that applies to life, that applies to life right when you're born. When you're like, let's say your parenting style, if you have that parenting style where a kid makes a mistake, he spills his milk, or he's trying something new, he makes a mistake and he gets punished for it. And that's how he's raised. When he grows up, he's going to be very reluctant to try new things in life and or explore certain, aspects of creativity, namely like starting his own business. That's why most people don't start their own business, because they've lived that kind of, I think most of us have lived that kind of life where if you make a mistake when you're a kid, you get punished for it. Even in school, when you make a mistake on your test, you get that red X on the thing. You got 5 wrong out of 10. You got a 50. You got an F. There's your punishment. Your F. Oh wait, I don't know these 5 things. Can I learn? I'll take the test again and show you that I learned. No, you got an F. There's your punishment. Repeat the grade. That sucks. There's your punishment. So you don't even want to make any mistakes. You don't want to try anything new. You don't want to, and you just have that mindset. And that's why most people are like that.
There is, however, a point where people, you could be raised in a way where you're not responsible for your own actions because there's no consequences to what you do. So if you don't study and you get the red X's all over your tests and you don't receive any punishment for it, right, then you will never learn. Because only He who suffers remembers.
Right, but there's a difference, and I know it always comes back to that dichotomy that you talk about, where it's really in the middle area. So I think that it has to be leaning towards that, what you were saying. Give them freedom to operate. If you make a mistake, but they're putting effort into it, that should be commended. If you get one wrong, two wrong, don't give them this trophy that says, hey, congratulations, you failed. A failure should be, the goal, right, is to make successful people.
I will, despite what I said, or in conjunction with what I said about there needing to be consequences, I agree that the correct answer or the correct reaction would not be, you failed, you're horrible, but you failed, what did you learn?
Yeah.
How can we improve?
Yes, exactly right. So
you notice that was exactly, double
exactly right. Yes, for sure. So yeah, they kind of get the best of both worlds, where they get that the fact that they failed, they understand that. And of course, no one's goal is to fail. So they know that they failed, they understand that they failed, but encouraged to improve and encouraged to understand. But I think in a lot of ways, people don't get that.
Yeah, and you definitely don't see it when in businesses. You definitely don't see it in the military. And so, yeah, you're right. You got to encourage that.
Well, yeah, and I think it could get, and this is just me speaking from zero experience, but I would imagine that it would get really rigid in the military because the stakes are a lot higher.
Well, that's why this is talking about training.
Yeah,
you don't want to let people make those kind of mistakes in combat. You won't give them that much rope where they can get somebody killed in combat. Yeah,
but in a training in life, in a learning situation or a developing phase,
right? Which
in life really is your whole life.
Yes.
But so
always learning.
So I think to stick to that, I don't know, format, whatever you want to call it, to stick to that, where understanding your mistakes, don't. Like a legitimate mistake, the punishment should not be the significant part of that experience.
The learning
should be. And hey, look, I understand there's different philosophies.
There's got to be some consequence. Some people don't learn without consequence. You see that these days with some of the new generation, which you might even be a part of. But the new generation that grows up consequence free, and they don't take any responsibility for their actions. They don't take ownership of anything that goes wrong because they've been raised in a way where failure doesn't matter and there's no consequences to their actions.
Yeah.
So
absolutely true.
Not to beat a dead horse on this subject, I had some notes in here around this from the book. Trying too hard to follow the book while solving battlefield situations makes one fairly predictable, even to enemies who haven't read the book. These don't, so you have to make some changes. And back to the book, these don't have to be drastically different from what's in the book. Often it's enough just to vary the amount of speed, stealth, or deception with which the standard method is executed. Standardizing what subordinates practice in peacetime may make those subordinates easier to control, but does not help them learn the alternative techniques needed to develop momentum in battle. So that actually supports your last statement. Standardizing what subordinates practice in peacetime may make those subordinates easier to control. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to control someone by beating them down and saying you failed, you need to do it this way and it's the only way, you're going to get more control of them, but you're going to not allow them to operate in the real world where they have to think of new ideas and think they have to free their mind.
Yeah, and in a way I would hypothesize you might not even get the best out of them. Really?
I believe you are correct.
They would get that rigid standard of output, and that's kind of it.
And going to a quote from the book supporting your hypothesis from Colonel Merritt A. Edson. He goes on about how you need to fight the Japanese, and he closes with, encourage your individuals and bring them out, which is just a beautiful statement.